From the late 1920s to the 1950s, the Soviet Union that promised a workers' paradise built something very different, a system that swallowed millions of its own people. The word Gulag wasn't a place at first, it was an acronym. It was the office that ran a vast network of prison camps spread from Europe to the Pacific. Inside those camps, prisoners wore numbers, worked from dusk to dawn, and ate just enough to keep going one more day. They cut forests, dug canals, mined coal, and built roads and cities with simple hand tools and freezing weather. The Gulag only needed the smallest crimes to suck you in. A careless joke, a jealous neighbor's lie, reading a banned book, or missing a work quota. Any of these could be enough to land you there. On paper, the camps were for re-education. In reality, they were a tool to control society and supply cheap labor for Stalin's plans. This is the story of how the Gulag grew, what daily life looked like inside, how it finally ended, and why its shadow still matters today. This is the Gulag. The story starts before Stalin. Under the Tsars, Siberia already had penal exile and hard labor sites. After the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, Lenin kept the logic and built special camps to isolate and re-educate enemies during the Civil War. The goal wasn't only to punish, it was to remove people from society and make their labor useful. Under Stalin, the scale exploded. In the early 1930s, the state pushed industrialization and collectivization. New factories, railways, cities, and canals, which needed lots of cheap movable labor. The Gulag became part of the economy. Most digging was done by hand. Thousands died along the way, were buried on the spot, and later covered by the water the canals let through. On paper, this was correction. In reality, it was a ruthless production machine. Then fear spread everywhere. Article 58, the law used to crush counter-revolution, came into force with the 1926 Criminal Code. It updated earlier revolutionary-era rules and was written to defend the socialist state from enemies, real or imagined. In practice, it gave the police a wide net to make as many arrests as they wanted. Because its language was vague, almost anything could be twisted to fit it, and nobody was safe from arrest. Going to church too often, having a machine breaking on your shift were all valid reasons to have you sent to labor camps. During the Great Terror, 1937 to 1938, the machine went into overdrive. Interrogations pushed for confessions, often with violence, until the paperwork made sense. Troikas, or three-man courts, stamped sentences in minutes. Camps were filled with kulaks, which is a political name given for wealthy peasants, teachers, engineers, writers, loyal party members, and even Red Army officers. Wives and children were punished too. Women sent away as members of a traitor's family, and children to orphanages. One of the largest women's camps was Algiers in Kazakhstan. Its name literally meant Camp for Wives of Traitors of the Motherland. A lot of these women had done nothing at all besides being related to a potential traitor. By the early 1950s, the Gulag's peak population reached 2.8 million people, and many millions more had already passed through. Some were worked to death in forests and mines. Others died in cattle cars from cold and disease before they ever saw a camp. The state kept saying it was building a better future, but the truth, the future was built on human lives. In the 1940s, in a camp deep in Siberia, a prisoner's day began in the dark. Most had already survived the first ordeal: arrest at night, harsh questioning, and the journey east in overcrowded rail cars with little to no food. Many died on the way from cold and disease. January 1949, before dawn, Alexander Solzhenitsyn sits on a plank bunk in a Siberian barracks. At the gate, he lost his name and got a number, a thin jacket, and a place in a room crammed with men. Across the Soviet Union, the Gulag runs like a machine. At arrival, roll call comes before dawn, then work starts. If it's logging day, the trees are heavy and the axe is blunt. If it's the mine or the quarry, the ground is hard and frozen, and the tools are minimal. Yet Alexander has to push through if he wants to eat. Inside the camps, quotas are high and rations are tied to output. Hit the target norm, get a few more grams of bread. Miss the target quota, grow hungrier and weaker. Punishment is constant. Guards would cut rations, leave prisoners for days in an unheated cell, and beat them in the cold. The camp economy runs on scraps. A spoon, tobacco, or a pair of shoes became currency. In these conditions, humanity became a luxury, and many made hard bargains in order to survive. Beyond this one camp, the system stretches across the map. Numbers rise to millions. The rule is simple: produce or starve. Years later, Alexander turns this life into words. Arrested in 1945 for private letters that criticized Stalin, he wrote what he lived and what others told him. In 1973, the Gulag Archipelago saw light. In 1974, Alexander was expelled from the USSR for telling that truth. His pages remain the clearest window into what a prisoner's day felt like. The cold, the hunger, the fear, and the small spark that refused to die. After March 1953, the system began to loosen. Stalin died, rumors spread, and some camps saw open resistance, most famously at Kengir. The state crushed the rebellions, but then pushed through a first big amnesty in March 1953. It wasn't the break many had hoped for. Not everyone was pardoned, though. Most political prisoners were excluded, but hundreds of thousands of people with shorter non-political sentences were released. However, that wasn't enough. Inside the camps that summer, something new happened: organized refusal. In Norilsk, a camp in the far north, prisoners staged a mass strike from May to August 1953, demanding fair rations, an end to beatings, and reviews of cases. News of Norilsk traveled far, and soon after, Vorkuta erupted in July 1953. Thousands refused to work. Guards fired on the strikers, but the message was sent: fear wasn't total anymore. The state won the clashes, but the old spell of obedience without question had finally cracked. Back in Moscow, the leadership argued about what to do with Stalin's legacy. In February 1956, Nikita Khrushchev made the big move towards a change. In the secret speech at the 20th Party Congress, he listed and denounced Stalin's crimes of mass arrests, executions, and torture. This started a movement of de-Stalinization. By 1957, the flow out of camps was steady. By the state's own measures, the Gulag was becoming bad economics. Keeping people alive in the Arctic cost more than their output. Forced labor looked efficient on paper, but in reality, it drained the budget and poisoned the workforce the country needed. In January 1960, the Gulag administration was dissolved inside the Interior Ministry. Then, the name Gulag ended. But labor colonies stayed. They got new titles, but they had the same fences, guard towers, production quotas, and punishment cells. The names changed, but the rest stayed quite the same. The numbers will never be exact, but the scale is clear. Millions were arrested, shipped east, worked to collapse, starved, or shot. Many died on the way, many more inside, and countless families were left without answers. The damage did not end at the camp gate. In modern Russia, memory is uneven. Memorial stones here and there, and a few museums. But much is still undertold or pushed aside. Russia's modern labor colonies keep the old shape of Gulag camps: frequent reports of beatings, forced work, overcrowding, and poor medical care. The uniforms, dates, and words have changed, but the system remains the same. Subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.